think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program this morning. Thank you so much for being with us. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. We've got a lot of news to get to today. We got some great guests on the program today, but we turn now to the situation in Arkansas when it comes to the Arkansas River. It is flooding, and it is really on a lot of people's minds right now, especially if your home or your possessions or your livelihood are in the path of these rising floods. Again, I've said this the last 2 days, but I would once again urge everybody out there to be praying for our fellow Arkansans across the state who are facing loss of property and an upheaval. Anytime you face something like this, it is extremely difficult to deal with. The Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson yesterday asking the federal government, asking President Trump for more assistance. That is certainly a good thing. Quote, I have determined that these storms and flooding are of such severity and magnitude that effective response is beyond the capabilities of the state and affected local governments, and that supplementary federal assistance is necessary. Obviously, it's also very hard. I think the governor went on to say that it's also very hard to predict exactly what level of funding. It's very difficult to calculate what the damage is going to be at this point and what the needs are going to be at this point. We have towns in Arkansas that really have, one way in, one way out at this point. President Trump, according to the governor, offered his full support, and he assured me that the Federal Emergency Management Agency is on board here, as they are, and that they will be here to assist us as needed. Of course, the president tweeted back on Tuesday that he spoke with Governor Asa Hutchinson and essentially, was on the same page with what the state of Arkansas is facing here. Also, we have Arkansas's Washington, D.C. delegation penning a letter to the president, also urging for assistance. The resourcefulness and resilience of Arkansans in recent days has been impressive, the letter says. However, as losses mount, the people of our great state hope the federal government will join in the restoration efforts. As of late, the governor freed up from his state emergency funding. Originally, I think at the beginning of the week, it was $100,000 in relief funds. He has raised that. He had a press conference yesterday at 1 o'clock. He has raised that now to $350,000 from the governor's Disaster Assistance Relief Fund. So we're going to continue to watch this, folks. Anybody out there in those listening areas? I know we have affiliates out there, communities affected, where you're able to listen. If you guys want to call us, give us an update. What do you? We would love to relay that to the audience or talk to you about what it is like on the ground right now at certain parts of the state. He is asking for an emergency declaration here. Let me read the counties that he's going over because it is actually a wide sample of Arkansas counties. 15 counties: Arkansas, Chico, Conway, Crawford, Dacia, Faulkner, Franklin, Jefferson, Johnson, Lincoln, Logie, Perry, Pope, Sebastian, and Yell. So we have a lot of counties there. to direct federal assistance for debris removal and emergency protective measures for those 15 counties. Again, the telephone number, 870-275-9799. Wanted to start the show there because I think that's what's the most important at this point. Now, yesterday, to kind of move on to some broad news, was extremely confusing. If you listened to Robert Mueller's press conference, it was designed to be confusing. My take on this is that the Democrat Party and the Russia narrative, the people who are obsessed with this Russian narrative, are losing. They're losing because, the president has been saying you can't get a do-over. All of these congressional investigations are ridiculous because we've already had this report. We've had 2 years investigation, multi-millions of dollars. And as much as they hate this president more than any other president, that if they could have charged him, they would have. If they could have even submitted a report saying we have evidence of collusion, but the Office of Legal Counsel won't let us charge a sitting president. They didn't say that. There is no evidence of collusion. Also, if you actually know the truth and you do your own homework on this, you know that the basis of the investigation was bogus from the beginning. It was projection in its highest form. The only collusion with Russians was with the Hillary Clinton campaign, the Democratic Party, Christopher Steele, the elements of our allies' government like the United Kingdom, and actual Russians, where they used a phony dossier that was fake. By the way, Hannity last night says that Michael Flynn actually received a memo from an ally in the United Kingdom saying they knew that the Steele dossier was fake. And that document cannot be found and was kept from congressional investigators. I wonder why. Probably because the Obama administration was given the same document. Well, it didn't just go to General Flynn and went to others. Oh, by the way, General Flynn, he just still can't get sentenced. Wonder why? That's because he was set up, just like this whole investigation was set up. That press conference yesterday by Robert Mueller was designed to sway public opinion. If you hear anything, I want you to hear that it was designed to sway public opinion. That's why I am inclined to believe that this was a move of desperation from the deep state. It was a move of desperation from people who are beginning to lose control of the narrative in spite of their massive mainstream media presence. It was designed to sway public opinion because they're losing control of the narrative. People are beginning to figure out that once again the mainstream media lied to them for 2 years, just like they lied to them for the 2 previous years. 2 previous years, they said Hillary Clinton will be your next president. There's no way a clown like Donald Trump will be president. Then that didn't happen, and it put people in therapy. It put people who have to have a government confirm and support their way of life in order to feel good about themselves. It put those people in therapy. And then they looked to the mainstream media again, and instead of being honest with them, instead of the media acknowledging that they were shills for the radical left, they doubled down. They had no moment of self-reflection, and they put all of their stock, and the deep state as well, by the way, the lifelong bureaucrats, the parts of our government that are not monolithic, that, you know what, it seems like they believe they should be the decision makers, not the American people. They said, no, we're going to go after him because there's no way that the left's ideas were actually rejected. There's no way that when they were talking about pronouns and President Trump was talking about jobs and illegal immigration, there's no way that our ideas, cultural Marxism on a chalkboard, were rejected. No, it had to be some kind of ill-gotten gain, right? It had to be, just like they think capitalism, although it has its faults, is not generally good. You have to steal. You're really actually stealing from somebody else. You get the point, right? So they doubled down and they said, you know what? No, it was wrong, and we've got this guy Mueller. We're putting all of our cards on Mueller, putting everything, all of our chips down on Mueller. He's going to correct what the American people just didn't have all the information. They had the fake news and Facebook. We blame it on Facebook as well. It really, it couldn't be our ideas. It couldn't be the fact that we're talking about boys going in girls' locker rooms, and we're talking about transgenders participating in sports that they're not a biological member of and winning. It couldn't be that. It has to be the fact that it was stolen. It was cheated. That's got to be what it is. And so this is where we are. We're here because they lost. And after 2 years, Mueller submits a report, and you've got the second 200 pages, which, by the way, shouldn't even really exist because it's not a prosecutor's job to trash somebody like that publicly. But okay, what if we just said, okay, but he is the president of the United States, and you're trying to get the facts out there. Okay, that's fine. The fact of the matter is, there is no evidence of collusion, which was the very reason this investigation was started in the first place with the special counsel. And so once again, you have all of these people who've been believing this nonsense, from Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow and the like. And after 2 years, Robert Mueller delivers a giant goose egg when it comes to actually implicating Trump or his campaign in colluding with the Russians. And so you don't get a do-over, but Robert Mueller's press conference yesterday was an attempt at a do-over. And I also think Congress wanted him to testify, but here's the thing about him testifying. Doesn't Jerry Nadler and the Democrats, don't you think they realized that the Republicans would get to ask him questions too? Don't you think that there might be maybe some new information that comes to light? And I kind of think they don't even, they want him to testify, but they don't. So Mueller comes out and does what is essentially a hit job yesterday on the president by contradicting Barr, but not contradicting Barr, and I'll get into that in a minute. He contradicts Barr, but now they're saying it's not a contradiction, and Mueller's trying to have it both ways. And I'll very simply, I'll explain to you why this was clearly an act of desperation and intentional deception here in a minute when it comes to that issue. But it was an act of desperation to sway public opinion. Let's just get into it now, shall we? Let's go right here because here are the initial reports. Let me give you the initial reports. Robert Mueller says he's not confident that Trump didn't commit a crime. Is that what a prosecutor's job is supposed to be? I mean, the fact is, if you would have had the evidence, if there's evidence of collusion, then you move forward, or you say it in the first half. Hey, we have all this evidence, and then you can say, but the Office of Legal Counsel says that you actually can't indict a sitting president; it's unconstitutional. Here are the initial reports. Special counsel Robert Mueller finally spoke out publicly on Wednesday, weeks after finishing the Russia investigation and releasing his report with redactions. He addressed both volumes of his report, particularly the concerns about whether they consider charging President Donald Trump, this is a courtesy of Mediaite, whether they consider charging Donald Trump with obstruction of justice. By the way, remember, the entire investigation, because the only evidence they had was the phony Russia dossier. That was it. That was what started the FISA warrants. That's the only evidence they had, was the phony Russia dossier. Okay? So then I think the whole thing was an attempt to get President Trump to actually obstruct justice by just making him so annoyed that he messes up. Mueller reiterated that if they were confident the president did not commit a crime, they would have said so, but they didn't. If we had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. We did not, however, make a determination as to whether the president did commit a crime. The introduction of Volume 2 of our report explains that decision. He emphasized that because of longstanding Justice Department policy, the president cannot be charged with a crime, and so charging the president with a crime was therefore an option he could not consider. Now, this is a big problem, and this is why you have people out there saying that maybe, possibly, William Barr lied. But that's not the case, and I'll tell you why. And it's very easy if you follow along what Mueller was saying. He contradicted himself. Mueller contradicted himself on a key assertion that he made yesterday, which is that they didn't indict the president because of the Office of Legal Counsel rules saying a sitting president can't be indicted. This is 180 degrees from what Attorney General William Barr has said, who said that decision those rules did not affect him. Those rules did not affect Robert Mueller's decision. So if there really is a contradiction there, then why in Robert Mueller's press conference yesterday did he say that he believes the Attorney General acted in good faith? Meaning he's good with the Attorney General, and he's good with how the Attorney General has handled disseminating this report to the public and his descriptions of it. Robert Mueller is trying to have it both ways here. So the question is, was this really an act of desperation? Was it really a deep state ploy? It certainly was an attempt to sway public opinion because their narrative is getting away from them. William Barr, on several occasions has said that Robert Mueller told him he didn't have the evidence to indict, not because of the OLC rules. So who's lying here? Well, apparently nobody, because go to the Washington Examiner. We now have this story late last night. Mueller and Barr team up to blast misinterpretations, no conflict on obstruction. The Justice Department and its Office of Special Counsel put on a united front to end speculation that Robert Mueller contradicted Attorney General William Barr on the decision-making on whether President Trump could be charged with obstruction of justice during his public address. Quote, the Attorney General has previously stated that the special counsel repeatedly affirmed that he was not saying that, but for the OLC opinion, he would have found the president obstructed justice. The special counsel's report and his statement today made clear that the office concluded it would not reach a determination one way or the other about whether the president committed a crime. There is no conflict between these statements, a joint statement from DOJ spokesperson Carrie Kupek and Mueller spokesman Peter Carr said. Mueller spoke publicly about it the first time. So now they're coming out and they're saying, well, there is no conflict here. So what was this? I mean, it was a stammering press conference, in my opinion. It's almost like Mueller was sent out there, and it was to confuse the public. Matter of fact, we'll get to this audio here in a minute. I want you to hear the very beginning of it. If you haven't listened to it yet, it's only 8 minutes, but I'd like for you just to hear the very beginning of it when we come back from break, because Mueller is also very, he's also very specific by saying that whatever he's saying here really doesn't apply because the written work should speak for itself. I mean, it is the written work, the actual report, that should speak for itself. We're going to take a break. 870-275-9799 if you want to contribute to the program. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment. Hey, folks, welcome back to the program. We got State Senator Gary Stubblefield from District 6. Gary, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Paul.
It's always great to have you on, and this is the impression of the session. You did one of these, I think, 2 years ago. And so I'll just give you the floor. This is kind of the format. Tell us, State Senator Gary Stubblefield, what was your impression of the session 2019?
Well, this was my 5th session since I've been there, and it was different in a number of ways. As far as some of the things were a little more stressful. We knew that they were coming. The highway funding bill and some of the other bills. There was good legislation that was passed, and there was some good legislation that got killed. In fact, one of the more important bills I felt was more important that certainly would have helped the middle class, not just the middle class, but even the upper middle class, lower was the.
Hey folks, it's me, Paul Harrell. I want to say hello to everybody out there who's listening. We appreciate you and your support, especially those listening on KFPW, the Marshall out of Fort Smith, 96.7 FM, 1230 AM. You know, for all of our listeners, if you ever miss the program, you can get us online at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews, or our YouTube channel. Just search for Conduit News and be sure to click the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications. Here at Conduit News Radio, we provide you multiple ways to listen to your number one source for Arkansas news and politics. ConduitNews.com.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right. Listen to the very beginning of this. Go to the Mediaite article, Joe, and click on that. I've got it queued up there for you. And whenever you're ready, this is Bob Mueller, beginning of his press conference yesterday.
Or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Now, I have not spoken publicly during our investigation. I'm speaking out today because our investigation is complete. The Attorney General has made the report on our investigation largely public. We are formally closing the special counsel's office, and as well, I'm resigning from the Department of Justice to return to private life. I'll make a few remarks about the results of our work. But beyond these few remarks, it is important that the office's written work speak for itself.
So what are we even doing this for?
Let me begin where the appointment order begins, and that is interference in the 2016 presidential election. As alleged by the grand jury in an indictment, Russian intelligence officers who were part of the Russian military launched a concerted attack on our political system. The indictment alleges that they used sophisticated cyber techniques to hack into computers and networks used by the Clinton campaign.
Stop! Do you notice? That's big news, by the way. Special Counsel Robert Mueller says alleged. Alleged. So what if it wasn't the Russians that hacked into the DNC in Hillary Clinton's campaign?
The weather is warming up, and so are the deals at Nebo Auto Center. When you go car shopping, the vast majority of you are looking for a late model, low-mileage car, truck, or SUV. And no one in Northeast Arkansas is trusted more than your friends at Nebo. It's an easy, hassle-free car buying experience unlike any other. And at Nebo Auto Center, they have vehicles that fit almost any budget that are all Carfax certified. So spring on in to Nebo Auto Center. Go to NeboAuto.com, then see them on Stadium Boulevard south of the bypass. We go Nebo.
Running a successful business in today's tech-driven world is no easy task. But Calmer's,
and it will be higher than 7,500.
Yeah,
that will help a lot of people.
I like that because you're talking about. Well, you didn't pass it at 7,500. Well, next time it's 10. Just the price.
That's exactly right.
The wall just got 10 feet higher.
Yeah. If they really want to help people and help put money back in people, because vehicles, I don't know, a lot of people remember the Cash for Clunkers program that Obama put in place, and that took a lot of vehicles out of people couldn't get good used cars. They were just demolished. And you go anywhere now to a car lot and try to buy a used vehicle, and they're just astronomical. I know my grandson was trying to buy one the other day, and I couldn't believe the price of it. So that needs to be raised. That's just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the scope of practice bills. I was glad to see the optometrist bill get through, but there should have been more scope of practice bills that got through. I had one that was changing one word as far as CRNAs were involved, just from the supervisory role of an anesthesiologist to change that word to in coordination, because we had anesthesiologists that were not even in the hospital when they had 6, 8 CRNAs working, and they're supposed to be supervising them, and they're not in a hospital. And we tried to change that, but when you're fighting the Arkansas Medical Association, that's a tough lobby.
Mm-hmm.
And they put a lot of pressure on, these politicians, and I don't know, it's kind of discouraging. There was a lot of things that were really discouraging to me, because I've watched the lobbyists for years, and lobbyists always look out for their clients. They look out for the best interest of their clients. And that's not always in the best interest of the citizens of the state of Arkansas. There's some good lobbyists, I will agree, and they give us some good information, but they still are looking out for the people they're paying them.
Yeah.
And I just wish more legislators would look out for their constituents and what's best for them.
Let me ask you this: were you on Senate? You're on Senate Judiciary, right?
Correct.
What was your reaction? Were you in the room that night when you guys were meeting and Senator Stephanie Flowers?
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Just to recap here, the written report should speak for itself. Robert Mueller comes out, throws fire on this impeachment concept. I mean, everybody's talking impeachment now. And then he says, I'm not ever answering any more questions about it. I find that a little interesting, don't you? And I think maybe, if you believe in, just look at how they coordinate all of this stuff. This is better for, I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats and the deep state and Jerry Nadler are 100% behind this. If Mueller had actually testified, the Republicans would get to ask questions too. Mueller says, I'm not going to testify. I'm just going to throw the country under the bus and then say I'm never answering any more questions about this. The written work speaks for itself. But as a prosecutor, I'm going to put my elbow on the scale. And this shows that they have lost control of public opinion, and they desperately need this Russia. By the way, go ahead, impeach the president. Go ahead. Do it. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to. Why? Why doesn't Nancy Pelosi want to impeach the president? Is it because she's seen polling that says that the American people think this is divisive and not really going to accomplish anything with the Senate, with the makeup of the Senate? Is that it? Or are people realizing that this whole thing was a hoax? It plays well to the base. The base doesn't want to admit, again, that their ideas were rejected in 2016. Let's go to Greg Jarrett, Fox News. He has an excellent piece on this. Opinion piece by Greg Jarrett. In his final act before resigning his position, Mueller told the gathered media on Wednesday that his non-decision decision on whether the president obstructed justice was informed by a long-standing opinion of the Office of Legal Counsel at the Justice Department that a sitting president cannot be charged with a crime. But according to William Barr, that's not what Mueller told Attorney General and others during a meeting on March 5th, 2017. Here's what Barr told senators during his May 1st testimony. Quote, "We were frankly surprised that they were not going to reach a decision on obstruction, and we asked them a lot about the reasoning behind this. Mueller stated 3 times to us in that meeting in response to our questioning that he emphatically was not saying that, but for the OLC opinion, he would have found obstruction," end quote. Barr said there were others in the meeting who heard Mueller say the exact same thing, that the OLC opinion played no role in the special counsel's decision-making or lack thereof. The Attorney General repeated this in his news conference the day Mueller's report was released to the public. Again, if Mueller really disagrees with that, how then in the same news conference did he also say that he believes the Attorney General acted in good faith in handling all of this? And now, of course, we have a joint statement from the Department of Justice and the Office of Special Counsel saying there is no contradiction here. Again, listen, it's 2 years. President Trump is the most, I would say, non-status quo president of my lifetime, maybe in the 20th century, and they can't stand him for it, and you know they would have done what they needed to do if there was some sort of smoking gun somewhere. The fact is, he's the most vetted president ever, and they still couldn't get him. Think about that. Let's see here. We specifically asked him, We specifically asked him about the OLC opinion and whether or not he was taking a position that he would have found a crime but for the existence of the OLC opinion. This is from William Barr, and he made it very clear several times that was not his position. Yet on Wednesday, Mueller was telling a different tale. He seemed to argue that he could not have accused the president of obstruction because he was handcuffed by the Office of Legal Counsel opinion. Why then did Mueller allegedly inform Barr that a special counsel can abandon the opinion if the facts merit it? Quote, he, Mueller, said that in the future the facts of the case against the president might be such that a special counsel would recommend abandoning the OLC opinion, but this is not such a case, end quote. Mueller did not abandon the OLC opinion in this case because he surely knew the facts and evidence did not support the law of obstruction. Instead, in his 448-page report, he implied presidential obstruction in a remarkable achievement of creative writing. He set forth in luxurious detail, quote, evidence on both sides of the question, end quote. But this is not the job of any chief prosecutor anywhere. Mueller was not retained to compose a masterpiece worthy of Proust. He was hired to investigate potential crimes arising from Russian interference in a presidential election and make a reasoned decision on whether charges were merited. Mueller's actions were not only noxious, but patently unfair to Trump. Special counsel publicly besmirched the president with tales of suspicious behavior instead of stated evidence that rose to the level of criminality. Now, I'm not an attorney, but that's the way the Justice Department is supposed to work. I mean, that's why they don't release the grand jury testimony. Legally, they're bound. They can't do it because they don't want to ruin someone publicly if there's no crime being committed. Yet they also want honest testimony. So it's a way to get honest testimony, especially if people know that their dirty laundry is not going to be the subject of Freedom of Information Acts. This is what prosecutors are never permitted to do. Justice Department rules forbid its lawyers from essentially announcing negative narratives about any person absent an indictment. How can that person properly defend himself without a trial? This is why prosecutors like Mueller are prohibited from trying their cases in the court of public opinion. But yesterday was just that. Yesterday, was an attempt to sway public opinion. Whether Congress, the Democrats in Congress, or whether they're trying to get control of the narrative. Let CNN continue to lie to their audience, their dwindling audience. Let MSNBC continue to lie to their audience. Say, no, wait, maybe there really is something there. I know we told you for 2 years, and then it was a giant nothing burger. But maybe there's still hope. Really? I mean, is it a 2020 ploy? Is that really what this is? You want this narrative all the way through 2020? Is it because the economy's doing well? Is that it? If they have probable cause to levy charges, they should do so. If not, they must refrain from openly disparaging someone that our justice system presumes is innocent. In this regard, Mueller shrewdly and improperly turned the law on its head. Consider the most inflammatory statement that he leveled at the president in his report. It was guaranteed to ignite the impeachment fire. Quote, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. To reinforce the point, Mueller stated it twice in his report. He then reiterated the argument on Wednesday when he said, if we had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. Prosecutors are not and have never been in the business of exonerating people. That's not their job. Unless you're working for the deep state, unless you're trying to slow down the first term of a presidency. You're trying to contain all of the damage that President Trump is doing to your cause. And he certainly is doing a good job at that, by the way. Heritage Foundation saying in the first year of his presidency he accomplished more than Ronald Reagan did in his first year. That's saying something. An experienced federal prosecutor, Mueller certainly knows this. It appears he had no intention of treating Trump equitably or applying the law in conformance with our criminal justice system. In a singular sentence, Mueller managed to reverse the legal duty that prosecutors have rigidly followed in America for centuries. Their legal obligation is not to exonerate someone or prove an individual's innocence, nor is any accused person required to prove his or her own innocence. Everyone is entitled to the presumption of innocence. It's the bedrock on which justice is built. But not if you're Donald Trump, apparently. Prosecutors must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt to bring charge. Why do I even have to say this? Special counsel took this inviolate principle and cleverly inverted it. He argued that he could not prove the president did not commit a crime. Think about that rationale, what it really means. It's a double negative. Mueller was contending that he can't prove something didn't happen. What if this were the standard for all criminal investigations? Apply it to yourself. Let's say you deposited your paycheck at a bank on Monday, the same day it's robbed. A prosecutor then announces publicly he cannot prove you didn't rob the bank, so you are neither criminally accused nor exonerated. The burden of proof has now been shifted to you to disprove the negative. How would you feel? You've been maligned with the taint of criminality and no longer enjoy the presumption of innocence. This is the equivalent of what Mueller did to Trump. The special counsel created the impression that Trump might have engaged in wrongdoing because he could not prove otherwise. The consequential injustice and harm that inevitably follows is what happens when we reverse the burden of proof and abandon the innocence standard that are revered in a democracy as fundamental rights. Yet, this is what Mueller did. He improvised a new standard that applies only to Trump, presumption of guilt, or Brett Kavanaugh, right, by the way, right? Brett Kavanaugh. Under this novel guilty until proven innocent paradigm, it is up to the president to prove the allegations are false. Well, guess what? You might just get it. You might just get it. If there's anybody that could prove the allegations are false and take on that challenge, I think it would be President Trump, because if you hit him, he hits you right back. And guess what? Is it a coincidence that Bob Mueller comes out and says this a week after the president gives the Attorney General the authority to declassify everything? You think we're idiots out here? Those of us who are following along and keeping score here think this is a little weird. Yeah, of course. It's not a coincidence. This is tit for tat from a national government that is not monolithic. That's what this is. And this is not a Democrat-Republican thing either. Because we definitely know what's been dubbed the Uniparty. We definitely know there are some things that, for some reason will put, people like, Chuck Schumer and sometimes other members, of the Republican establishment, they'll lock arms and sing Kumbaya. Oh, most of them are not even in there anymore. But, you could say Jeff Flake or the John McCains of the world, the late John McCain. This is what is abundantly clear to me. There are still some people out there that think the deep state is some, right-wing made-up phrase. It's not. It's not. It's real. And it's apparently the part of our government that is just unaccountable to anybody. Or at least they think they're not accountable. Maybe they think accountability is coming. Now, think about this for a second. Bob Mueller comes out and reignites impeachment and casts doubt on his own report. He says the report should speak for itself, which it does, but I just want to reemphasize, we've now taken control of the media narrative for a while. By the way, Michael Horowitz's summary report, the Inspector General investigating the Justice Department, came out yesterday as well. But if you're President Trump and you're fighting off this obstruction of justice phony charge or innuendo, and you're about to declassify everything, and let's just say that if he were to declassify everything, it exposes Comey, it exposes Brennan, it exposes Clapper, it exposes McCabe, it exposes Peter Strzok, it exposes the British government or parts of it, it maybe exposes other allies, it exposes, all of the spying that was done, the setup. George Papadopoulos was actually seeded with information about Russians. It wasn't his own, from a spy. If all of that happens, and we also know the FBI contracted 4 other people to follow Americans around 4 years before the 2016 elections, presumably other Republican presidential candidates. And you're about to prove all of that. I'm talking about stuff that the mainstream media will not be able to ignore, although I still think they'll find a way to do it. But let's just assume, for sake of argument, that you're about to do that. And the very reason we know the president didn't release the FISA applications and declassify everything while Mueller was still going, while the investigation was still going on, was because then they really could have said, you're obstructing justice because you're trying to go after the people who open investigation and are coming after you. Well, now that most of those all those FBI guys are gone, all those top justice, from what I can tell, top Justice Department officials are now gone. They've either retired or been fired. Now that Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation is officially over, he's done. He resigned yesterday, but he went out and he slapped the president down. Do you think that any of that was an effort to maybe deter the declassification that President Trump put in motion last week when he told William Barr that you have all the authority to declassify? Oh, and by the way, all of these intelligence agencies, you must cooperate with the Attorney General Department of Justice. That's why I'm telling you, yesterday's press conference was an act of desperation. This was one of their, I think, one of their last plays, and they're trying to do everything they can to. And you know what's funny? What's interesting is Trump's a guy that would make a deal, and I bet he offered. I bet Donald Trump, wanted these guys to just be fair, equitable, and play ball when he got elected, and they just said absolutely not. Maybe because they really were scared. Again, the Republican-controlled House Intelligence Committee, before the Democrats took control, their investigation was clear into this. They didn't find collusion with the Trump campaign. The only collusion they found was between the DNC and the Russians and the Hillary Clinton campaign and Fusion GPS. That was it. Oh, by the way, if you really want to know what I was talking about with the Uniparty and Republicans establishment, Democrat establishment, locking arms, singing Kumbaya occasionally, you can look into Fusion GPS, and that'll tell you something too. Telephone number 870-275-9799 if you want to contribute to the program. If you're in one of those flooded areas in Arkansas and you want to call in and let us know what the conditions are, we would love to convey that to this audience or give us an update about what's going on. We are very sorry that this is happening. The Arkansas River. Now, the good news about the Arkansas River, I saw this in the Gazette where they reported, by the way, the governor has requested federal assistance for 15 counties, and so that's certainly a good thing. The president and Governor Asa Hutchinson are in communication together. We have the governor raising his emergency relief fund, or what he's going to pay from $100,000 to $350,000. But from what I can tell here, the Arkansas River is at least it's rising below what they were forecast, but I mean it's still breaking records. The National Weather Service revised its forecast for the Arkansas River level at Van Buren on Wednesday. The river should crest today at 40.5 feet, so 40.5 feet, according to water.weather.gov. That's down a half a foot from Tuesday's prediction and 2 feet lower than Monday's forecast. The river level at Van Buren broke a 74-year-old record on Sunday when it passed 38.1 feet. It's remained above that level ever since. Again, pray for our Arkansans who are in the path of this flood, who are losing their possessions, the material possessions, because it is certainly, it's not only, when this happens, it's not only unnerving, but it's also an upheaval, and it's just a terrible, terrible thing. Folks, telephone number 870-275-9799. We'll be back in just a moment.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Just went off and even told Alan Clark, Senator Clark, to, quote, go to hell.
I not only was in the room, I was 2 feet from Senator Flowers. I was, I've been there, like I say, it's going on 9 years. I've seen some crazy things on the floor and in committee meetings, but I have never witnessed anything like that. And, yes, I was sitting there, and I love Senator Clark. I really do. I respect him. He's a bright guy. He's very intelligent. He's very calm, cool, and collected. But I would have handled that situation a little different, because the minute she started raising her voice, I would have shut the whole meeting down. I would have canceled it. I said, we're adjourned. We'll come back when cooler heads prevail, because that got a little out of hand. A little out of hand, and it was, I don't know.
Were you surprised that bill fell? It was a stand your ground bill. It eventually failed. Were you surprised at that?
I really was. I really was, because I felt
Determined
like
to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Do we have some candidates? Let's see. Do we have candidates for Meme of the Day? Joe, you working on some of those? We had a few from yesterday. Yeah, okay. Those are some good ones. I like it. We're going to have our Meme of the Day an hour from now. And then it'll be posted up at the Conduit News Twitter feed. You can follow us on Twitter at Conduit News. Also, Facebook.com/Conduit News is where we will also. Tim on Facebook, I think, perfectly encapsulating what's going on today, or what went on yesterday, writing, "The point of special counsel's appointment was to impeach Trump and protect the deep state. There never was a real investigation because there was nothing to investigate. Yesterday, meaning the press conference, was intended to continue the disinformation, to deflect from the Inspector General report and coming indictments, taking credibility away from Barr and continuing to try to protect and deflect." Now, the only question is, will actual indictments happen of people like McCabe, of people like Brennan, people like Comey? That's the real question. And I think all of the, especially McCabe and Comey and Brennan going on, CNN, and they're essentially running a political campaign under the guise of being former intelligence officials. They're going on these networks so that if they were indicted, the networks would be able to say, we're now a banana republic and the president's going after his perceived enemies, without actually giving the viewers the evidence of what these men have done and abused. So that's certainly interesting. But that's a very good point, Tim. I think that's a good summary of what's going on. Folks, when we come back, I want to introduce you to Rachel Martin. Rachel Martin is the chair, the Arkansas chair for the Young Americans for Liberty. And I believe she's also, I was talking to her last week, I think she's also the state chair for Oklahoma, our neighbors to the west. So, and also I believe former Arkansas Secretary of State Mark Martin's daughter. So we'll be talking with Rachel when we come back here at 7:05. And so you certainly don't want to miss this. Alan Dershowitz, dailycaller.com, former Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz wrote a Wednesday op-ed in The Hill lambasting special counsel Robert Mueller for comments he made during a press conference earlier in the day. Quote, "If we had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so," Mueller said. We did not, however, make a determination. We've been over that. Dershowitz took exception with this statement in his piece. Dershowitz, shame on Robert Mueller for exceeding his role. He began by saying that what Mueller said Wednesday, quote, "is worse than the statement made by then FBI Director James Comey regarding Hillary Clinton." He went beyond the conclusion of his report and gave a political gift to Democrats in Congress who are seeking to institute impeachment proceedings against President Trump. By implying that President Trump might have committed obstruction of justice, Mueller effectively invited Democrats to institute impeachment proceedings. Obstruction of justice is a high crime and misdemeanor, which, under the Constitution, authorizes impeachment. Okay, so check this out. All right, so we've gone through, I think, this hour, a lot of different reasons why this is, why Mueller did what he did yesterday. But here's one far out there speculation. And it's far out there, but hear me out. If you believe that the Democrats impeaching the president would actually help Trump's re-election chances, raise your hand. I'm going to kind of sort of raise my hand. Like sort of raise my hand. I think if they impeach him, it's going to really help him in 2020. Well, if the House votes for impeachment, right? Not the Senate. So then, you get the point. I mean, I told you it's far out there, but who knows? Maybe that was intentional. We'll be back here in just a moment.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
And but he didn't. And yeah, I really thought the bill would get through, at least get through the committee.
Yeah. So
and I felt, you know, once the bill gets through a committee like that, it normally gets through the floor, especially when you've got a majority of Republicans. That bill should have gotten through. But again, they were fighting, you know, prosecutors and and not all the sheriffs. There are some sheriffs out there that still believe in the Second Amendment. But they were fighting the Arkansas Sheriff's Association and the prosecutors, and I don't know. There's, you know, that was another thing that was disappointing to me.
We're talking with
those are coming back, Paul. I promise you. There's going to be more attempts to take away our constitutional rights as far as our Second Amendment rights. We'll be fighting those from now on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, we've had, and I say this over and over, we've had what I call an inversion of common sense in this country, and an inversion of morality that I have never witnessed. I'm 68 years old, and I can remember back in the 50s and 60s, the things that we knew were wrong are now being called right. And the things that we knew were right back then are now being called wrong. So it's very troubling to me. You know, we're down here in the River Valley right now. We're having a tremendous problem with floods, and thousands of people are losing their homes and all kinds. In fact, my district, Franklin, Logan, Johnson, Yale County, the Arkansas River runs through my entire district. And it's affecting a lot of people. And there's so many people that are volunteering to help, and I've seen so much good. It just gives you a lot of hope as far as our country's concerned. But at the same time, on Memorial Day, I was listening to some polls about young people. 60% of young people believe that if they had the opportunity, they would vote to do away with the Constitution. That's very, very troubling. And 61% didn't even know what we were celebrating on Memorial Day.
Oh.
And to me, that, you know, I think we're now seeing the fruit of what has been taught and not been taught in our education system, because a lot of schools are not teaching American history anymore. A lot of these kids don't even know anything about the Constitution. Someone once said that he who controls the present, I don't remember who it was, controls the past, and he who controls the past controls the future. Well, you know, if you control the past, you can eliminate what made this country the greatest, the most powerful, generous, prosperous country on the face of the earth. You can just eliminate that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason socialism looks, you know, so appealing to some of these millennials now, because they don't even know what made this country the country it is.
Yeah.
And that's disheartening to me. Very.
We're talking with State Senator Gary Stubblefield. This is his impression of the session. What about social issues, Gary? How do you think you guys did on social issues this session?
I think well, you know, anytime you have states, what amazes me, we have two states, I think, now that have abortion laws where you can kill a child after it's born. Birth a child, wrap it in a blanket, and then the mother and the doctor can decide whether or not to kill the child. That is, I can't even comprehend that. Let alone, and then kill a child right up to 9 months. And of course, I ran a couple of abortion bills this session, and I know when I presented the one that Senator Chesterfield asked me, she said, "How many more of these bills are you going to bring, Senator Stubblefield?" She said, "This has got to be a God's billion or something like that." And I told her from the Senate floor, I said, "You know, as long as they keep killing innocent unborn babies, I'll keep bringing abortion bills, because I believe that's the sin of our nation. I really do. I really believe it's the sin of our country is that we've killed all these babies, and I think that's going to come back to haunt us."
Mm-hmm. I'm worried. I worry about that as well. What about the end of the session? and I want to talk about taxes here in a minute, but at the end of the session,
the immigration bill?
Sanctuary cities. Tell us about it.
I'll tell you about it. It's always very difficult to run a bill like that. It's always, and I did not wait till the last minute.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
River is rising. People are talking about, all kinds of roads are being closed. Hey, folks, welcome to the program. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. I want to introduce you for the first time. We've got Rachel Martin on the line. Rachel, welcome to the program. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Rachel, you are the Arkansas chair for Young Americans for Liberty, also the Oklahoma chair. Tell us a little bit about Young Americans for Liberty.
Okay. So Young Americans for Liberty, they are a pro-liberty organization that mainly focuses on college campuses and turning college students into youth activists for liberty.
That's and tell us a little bit. I mean, the website is yaliberty.org. How did you get involved with something like this?
Well, actually, I was introduced to it by a friend of mine. She was very involved, and she actually was the Virginia state chair at the time. And she was kind of talking about it, and I was trying to get involved with something on campus that I could, make a difference with. And I was leaning towards the Federalist Society, and that's whenever I decided, you know what, Young Americans for Liberty sounds like kind of the place for me. I'm going to check out and see if there's a chapter on my campus. And there was. I go to the University of Arkansas. And so whenever I actually transferred over, I joined. And what was funny is that chapter was actually dead. And it was interesting because I was contacted by a field coordinator with Yale, and they're like, we would actually like you to kind of restart this chapter, get it up and running again. And I was like, absolutely. And so I did. And I did that back in November. I joined in November. I started the chapter whenever the semester started. And then from there around March, I was contacted to become the state chair for Arkansas and Oklahoma.
Wow. So is that difficult? Now, what year are you in college?
I'm a junior in college.
Okay, so junior. So is it difficult, and how do you balance, being at the University of Arkansas and also being the chair and responsible for Oklahoma as well?
Well, it is difficult. It's a lot of time and energy. You have to connect with a lot of people, and you have to talk to them on a regular basis for the most part. But honestly, the way you get to build your network with Yale, you kind of build friendships with these people, and it really doesn't even feel like a job after a while. It feels really nice being able to contact with these people, and there are some great youth activists over at, University of Tulsa, Oral Roberts, Arkansas State. There's some amazing people we've got in my network.
That's great. That's fantastic. We're talking with Rachel Martin. Now, you are the daughter of former Arkansas Secretary of State Mark Martin, who did a fantastic job as Secretary of State 2 terms. So you got to be proud of your dad, right?
Right, of course.
The vision. I'm reading from the website, Young Americans for Liberty. Our vision is to build a bench of 250 Liberty legislators by the end of 2022 at the state level who will advance a libertarian philosophy, ascend to higher office, and reclaim the direction of our government. So, reclaim the direction. So right now, I would assume there are some directions that you disagree with. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the problems that need to be corrected, Rachel?
Well, for the most part, Young Americans for Liberty believes in economic freedom, as well as we believe in kind of principle over party, and we're huge supporters of the Constitution. And from that, the direction of the government as we see it right now is heading towards more government, more regulations, higher taxes, and an imbalanced budget.
Well, the budget is actually something that no one talks about anymore. I mean, people used to talk about it. It was supposedly a big deal in 2008, 2009, 2010, but not really. It seems like we've got people up there that, we're $20 trillion in debt now. And that's crazy. Mm-hmm. That's crazy because this is my 10th year of radio, and I think when we started we were $12 trillion in debt, and now we're $20 trillion. And I think
we're actually at $23 trillion last time I looked.
So $23 trillion. That is crazy. So it's like It's basically adding a trillion a year, and it seems like most people think that we spent $23 trillion that we don't have, and nothing bad has happened yet. We're still living on the backs of our children's future. So why can't we spend 40 or 50 trillion? That seems to be some of these guys' mentality, Rachel.
I would agree, and that's why it's so important for us to train up youth leaders and help get these people elected with Operation Win at the Door at state level so they can ascend to higher office, and we can start looking towards a more brighter future thanks to the youth activists knocking doors, making phone calls to get these guys elected.
You said Win at the Door. What's that?
That is how we are progressing our vision. Win at the Door is actually referred to as Operation Win at the Door, and it's a program that we have that we started up, and it is actually very interesting. So we've spent about 9 years building youth activists, and now it's time to actually utilize those people in what we think is important in our vision. And so essentially what Operation Win at the Door is, we identify liberty-minded candidates in various states at the state level, and we send them. We have them fill out a candidate survey, and we see if they kind of fit what we're looking for, that will support the Constitution. And from there we send our activists out on campaigns to knock doors all over the country. I'm actually going to Mississippi in July. We have some people in Virginia right now, and then the people who can't leave their state, we do a lot of phone banking for those candidates.
Okay, so once you guys get the information, like a candidate survey, then you guys endorse, and then Young Americans for Liberty essentially helps knock doors for the candidate. That's what Win at the Door is.
Correct.
That's great. That really, I'm glad that you call it Win at the Door, because that really is what gets people involved. And plus, once you get that personal touch where somebody has actually come by. Gone issue by issue. Because, see, a lot of people don't like labels, or they hear bad things when you labels it. But if you go issue by issue, this is what this person believes. When it comes to what I would call conservative, most people identify with that. They really, really do. Let's see here. So we're talking with Rachel Martin. She's the Arkansas and Oklahoma chair for the Young Americans for Liberty. You can find out more at yaliberty.org. Now, let me ask you this, Rachel. You are on a college campus at the University of Arkansas. You're involved with other colleges as well. Is this message welcome with everybody. We kind of live in an age where there's this hypersensitivity for people your age, and they don't seem to like conservatism or republicanism. As a matter of fact, they seem to be quite socialist. So what's your interaction with your peers?
That's interesting that you say that. A lot of people, I think, are very susceptible to hearing about Yao because we are technically nonpartisan, and we have portions of ourselves that can, be agreed with by everyone, specifically freedom of speech. And one of our activism events that we do now is we sometimes challenge free speech codes, free speech spaces on public universities by using a giant 8-foot beach ball, rolling it around and letting students, kind of write whatever opinion they have on it. And that really helps draw people in, especially how large the beach ball is. But, it gives us a moment to stay and talk with them, get them to sign up, kind of help them realize what we're about and see that whether or not you agree with us on smaller issues, you can definitely get behind the fact that we need more free speech and more discourse on campus.
So people, you think, are still they still respond to this idea, this American idea of freedom of speech? Are there people who are hostile to it, though?
I would say the only people that demonstrate any level of disagreement are typically the administration at public universities. The students, for the most part, are pretty accepting from what I've seen. It's the administration we have to look out for.
Wow. Yeah, that's certainly not the first time I've heard that. That's for sure. Well, Rachel Martin, I really appreciate you coming on the program. Young Americans for Liberty. Appreciate the work that you're doing. Best of luck, and I'd love to have you on again soon, especially to talk more about the great work that you guys are doing.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. You too, and have a great day. Rachel Martin, everybody. We're going to take a break. Going to reset here. The telephone number 870-275-9799 if you want to contribute to the conversation. We do have our meme of the day coming up, in the last, 5-10 minutes of the show. Also, State Representative Josh Miller will be calling in. He'll be on the show 7:33 giving his impression of the session, which should be colorful. And it always is. We always love talking with Josh. Back in just a moment.
I know some of the Democrats were accusing me of waiting till the last minute and throwing it. And of course, they also come out and invoke Jesus and Christianity into this. And these are the same Democrats that voted for every kind of abortion all the way up to.
Can I interject there?
Yeah, go ahead.
That was actually interesting to me to hear the Democrats. Really just reveal how scripturally illiterate they are.
Exactly.
But that was just one of my observations. Go ahead.
Well, you're right. I went over to the House floor the day they voted on it, and to hear these Democrats go to the well and talk about how unchristian it is, and I thought, you are the same people who voted to kill an innocent unborn child, but you have a problem against setting up a sanctuary city to allow people who come in who've broken our laws, and in some cases, of course, they've already broken our laws. And some of those...
Hey, folks, it's me, Paul Harrell. I want to say hello to everybody out there who's listening. We appreciate you and your support, especially those listening on KFPW, the Marshall out of Fort Smith, 96.7 FM, 1230 AM. For all of our listeners, if you ever missed the program, you can get us online at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews, or our YouTube channel. Just search for Conduit News and be sure to click the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications. Here at Conduit News Radio, we provide you multiple ways to listen to your #1 source for Arkansas news and politics. ConduitNews.com. Bob Maloney here with a developing story from ASA News The Parrot. China is coming to Arkansas. We go live to the press conference where the Communist Chinese executive is addressing Arkansans for the first time. Let's listen into the translator.
我在这里 代表中华人民共和国政府邀
On
请你们来
behalf
参
of the
观在
government
阿肯
of the
色州
People's
最新成
Republic
立
of
的
China,
城市
we invite you
China-Delphia。
to come and visit
我们
the
很开
newest
心
named
能
city
够
in
主宰一个
Arkansas,
在美国的城
China-Delphia.
市。
We are very pleased to
我
own
国
an
共产
American
党政
city.
府很荣幸的能够
Our
跟平
communist
庸的
government
阿肯色州在经济
is
上有
proud to
来
do
往。
business with
我
the
们很乐
mediocre
意
state
接
of
受你们的
Arkansas.
投资资金还
We
有
are
树
happy
林，
to take
用完后把盈
your
利
money
带回国。
and your trees
我国
and send the
共产党
profits
政
back
府
home.
没有想到
The
阿肯色
communist
州
government
纳
of
税人
China
很乐意的
was
把他们
pleased
的
to
血
learn
汗
that
钱
taxpayers
投
of
资在一个美
Arkansas
梦，
are
并希望
excited to
我们会制
contribute
造很多就
their
业机
money
会
with
给
the
你们。
hope if you build it,
我
one
们
day
很兴
jobs
奋的把你
will
们资
come.
本主义的投资
We are
转成
excited to
共
take
产主
your
义资金
fields
并且
of
让所有阿
capitalism
肯色州人民
and
可以
turn
崇
them
拜
into
毛主
fields
席的理想
of
与教
communism,
导。
where every Arkansan has
中国
nightly
很期
dreams
待
of
我们
Mao.
这10亿美金投
China
资
is
在这
looking
所谓的
forward
阿
to
肯
our
色州。
investment of $1
这
billion
个投资
in what
是
is
我
now
们的未
called
来，也是我
Arkansas.
们未来的
We see
新
this
北
as
京。
an investment in our future, and that future will be called New
中国
Beijing.
投资会为阿肯色州带来
Chinese
无尽的
investment
就业
will
机
make
会。
Arkansas
这
a
就是为
great
何
place
中华人
for
民共和国比
jobs
苏联
as the
更好的
People's
地方。
Republic of China
当
will
我们完
succeed
全的融入
where
阿
the
肯
Soviets
色州
failed.
经济的时候，我们
As
就
we
可以
build our
慢
roots
慢地
deep
把你们
in
的技术
Arkansas,
进步
we are
和
thrilled
技
with
带
the
回我国。
potential new
不久
ideas
后，
and
我国就
advancement
可以
we
在
will
南中
share
国海线
with
最大
our
的军事
people
跑道。
back home. Soon we will have
我
the
们非常感
world's
激阿肯
largest
色州在这
runway
方面的
in
贡
the
献。
South China Sea, and we thank Arkansas for
最后，
contributing
当
to
我
our
们把
noble
中国
cause.
变更强大
In
的时候，
closing,
你们
once
就
we
会感
make
受到
China
毛泽东
great
革命的
again,
荣耀。
all of you
还有，
will see the
请你们
glory
无论如何
of
都
the
不要联络
revolution
联
of
邦调
Mao.
查局。谢
And
谢。
Arkansas, whatever you do, please never call the FBI.
Paul Harrell, Parody.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Oh, 870-275-9799. That is the telephone number if you would like to contribute to the program. Former Arkansas Senator case shows gray area in ethics rules. Former Arkansas Senator case shows gray area in ethics rules. This was very interesting to me. This was what, the 26th. So this is a few days old. All right. Lisa Hammersley. Now it's obviously a photo of Senator Jeremy Hutchinson. I think this is the same one that they use. Is this him walking into court or something? I think it's kind of the same one that they've used a lot here. So this is not necessarily new, if you will. So federal prosecutors, obviously they had suspicions, if not evidence, that Preferred Family Health Care, they were paying Jeremy Hutchinson to pass bills and legislation that directly benefit Preferred Family Health Care. The payments by former executives of Preferred Family Health Care of Springfield totaled $60,000 over one 7-month period, according to the federal indictment. And they've got emails between Rusty Cranford. Now, you'll have to remember that Rusty Cranford he pled guilty, but he did so after they found him and had recordings. The government says they have recordings of him trying to pay a guy to kill and murder a witness in New Jersey who had already pled guilty the year prior. I always got to throw that in there because a lot of people seem not to want to mention that there was so much money involved that people were willing to kill for it, or to kill at least to keep themselves out of jail. which is not exactly, I mean, you know, it's self-preservation. So in the indictment, we're Hutchinson. Now we're not talking about the first indictment where Jeremy Hutchinson was indicted on, you know, campaign finance problems and tax problems. We're talking about the indictment where he's essentially being bribed, taking bribes as an attorney or as a consultant to pass bills for clients and that sort of thing. After a string, Lisa Hammersley writes, after a string of federal political corruption investigations in the past 3 years, targeted a half dozen former state legislators, the Senate in recent months adopted new ethics rules and the legislature has embraced new ethics-related laws. But not all of them, not the whole package, and obviously they leave out the biggest two that would prevent what we're talking about. They want the rules to essentially do the hard work, you know. It's now a rule that you have to disclose if you're making money. It's now a rule that you have to disclose, and it's up to other senators to report you if they think that you have a conflict of interest, which is very odd because if you know how it works down there, if you were to report a colleague, you would be ostracized, especially if you were to report a colleague who, let's say, was in the establishment and was also pushing the big government legislation of the session, and then you reported them, you would be ostracized, you would be called, you're not playing I mean, this is the way things work. I mean, to say that we're just going to clean it up and everything's fine, it's just not how it's done. You got to have laws, you got to have laws with teeth in it. I don't even think they got the one passed with the pensions, you know, where you're going to lose your pension if you could get convicted of a crime. So it's very frustrating, very, very frustrating that they couldn't get a lot of this done. But what I find odd is, and, you know, Lisa Hammersley does a decent job here of talking about what just happened in the last session, talking about the emails and the communications between Rusty Cranford, Bontia Goss, and Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, and essentially saying, listen, you know, he was paid to pass bills for preferred family health care to make them more money, more taxpayer money, and you can't do that. That's great. I mean, you know, it's good to keep that in the minds public. I mean, they even mentioned, other legislators as well, you know, Hank Wilkins. But what I found conspicuously absent from this is the fact that there's no mention that there were two ethics laws from previous sessions from senators who are no longer in office, who were primaried by essentially a sitting governor, who picked sides and endorsed the Republican challengers against, two sitting senators. And it is what it is, but I found that you would think you would at least mention that, considering that Brian King's bill would have required Medicaid disclosure if you are getting money or your spouse is getting money from a Medicaid entity. If you're doing business, you have to disclose it. Well, we would have had... Jeremy Hutchinson would have had to disclose, or if he hadn't, you know, he'd be in violation. And then you had Senator Linda Collins' bill that would have made it illegal for attorneys to use a loophole to, if you're an attorney, you can somehow get on retainer and then pass bills for clients. I mean, those two bills not only were defeated, the sponsors of those bills were then run out of office or voted out of office in a Republican primary where the establishment was against them. It would at least be nice, if you're going to talk about ethics reform and the lack thereof, to mention that fact. That is a big deal that gets very little attention in this state. That the corruption that has taken place, there was an attempt back in 2017 to prevent it and expose it. And the people who attempted to do so were voted out of office in a Republican primary where the establishment went against the authors of those pieces of legislation. That's news. 870-275-9799. We'll be right back with State Representative Josh Miller.
done a lot of other things that were illegal, because I got a number of calls. Every time I run this bill, I always get calls from all over the state of cases where parents have lost kids or had someone in their family who's been injured, either in a car accident or a rape, and that individual, that person who's here illegally, never shows up. They just disappear. They either leave the state, and there's just no justice. But whenever I filed the bill, I got a call from city director of Little Rock, Lance Kine, and he began to tell me how Little Rock has appropriated $180,000 for for photo IDs for illegal immigrants. And I thought he was joking. And he said, no, this has been going on for some time. And in fact, the way they worked it into the budget, he acted like it was almost illegal the way they worked it in. I mean, this was the previous mayor, not the mayor they have now. And he asked me, he said, would you care if I testify? And I said, absolutely. I would love for you to come testify. So, anyway, had no problem getting the bill through city, county, local, and then I had no problem getting it off the Senate floor. Once we got over to the House side, city, county, local committee, when I walked in the room with Representative Smith, there weren't very many committee members there. And the ones that were there, a lot of those were Democrats, and I knew where we stood with them. And, of course, that first day, and I don't know why they got up and left. There was a couple that took their phones and got up and left. And the vote was still, it was rather close. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 votes. But then, and it failed. The bill failed. So the next day, I had been on the phone with some people, and I know Brand had been on the phone with some people, trying to get this thing back in front of Lanny Fight was the chair of City County Local. And it was just amazing. We got it back, and then I think I know Jan got on and put a list of all the people who had got up and walked out.
Jan Morgan.
The people who weren't there and didn't vote. And it was funny, the next day, several of those came to me and said, man, did we get a thrashing? And I said, well, how are you going to vote today? They said, you know how we're going to vote. So I knew we had it then. And then once we got it out of City, County, and Local, it wasn't a problem getting it to the floor.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, and it was definitely a moment of solidarity with Republicans saying, yeah, we don't want sanctuary cities anywhere in Arkansas, and knowing that Little Rock might be kind of lurching towards that goal. And then, of course, right after that, a week later, the news broke that there was a plan for DHS to potentially drop off illegal aliens in sanctuary cities, which really made...
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, 870-275-9799. We've been doing these things. You guys know the drill. It's the impression of session time. We got 2 more tomorrow. Welcome to the program. State Representative Josh Miller is with us. He's from District 66. Josh, how are you, sir?
Man, I'm doing good, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's always great to have you on, sir. So we're going to just take it. It's impression of the session. Let's just let you have the floor, and then we can talk specifics later. State Representative Josh Miller, what was your impression of the session 2019?
Well, I thought there was some of it that was good, and some of it that sucked. And if you're a taxpayer in Arkansas, you probably, weren't that happy. If you're a freeloader in the state of Arkansas, you came out okay. And anyway, that's pretty much my impression.
Wow. So if you're a taxpayer, you weren't happy. If you're a freeloader, you came out okay. Now, when you say that, are you referring to, the fact that, according to the DFA numbers that I've seen, it looks like the people of Arkansas are going to be paying more money to the government after the session than they were before the session.
Right. That's what I'm saying. We've we did cut some taxes, but had the income tax reduction, and that was a good thing. But then, we're raising the gas taxes and all the other little ways that you get nickeled and dimed. That's not good. We are going to be paying more into the government. When the projection numbers were released here not too long ago, and we were in legislative council when that happened, or when we heard it, we realized that we were going to be getting enough extra revenue just from a better economy.
Wow.
That we could have pretty much taken care of the highway problem without raising taxes one bit. But that's not what we did. So anyhow, there's that's my impression on that. And then again, if you're we haven't done a whole lot as far as going back, like what I was saying about if you're a freeloader, you're still okay. If you're just taking care of or continuing to count on government subsidies and all that kind of stuff, you're still fine because we're not making any changes to those. And anyway, if you're a big insurance company, you're going to continue to make record profits.
Let's talk about that.
Let's
talk about that. We're talking to State Representative Josh Miller. You did have a bill that would have pulled Arkansas to a fee-for-service model on the Medicaid expansion. It would save state taxpayer dollars a gargantuan. I mean, state taxpayers a gargantuan amount of money, and you couldn't get it out of committee. Did you think you were going to get it out of committee? Because I was thinking, this bill probably didn't have a chance because of Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Right. I did think I was going to get it out of committee. I knew there were, those in leadership that were against the bill. It was a big idea. We were going to be making some major changes to our Medicaid expansion program, and those in leadership convinced a couple of votes that were Republicans to go with them and vote against the bill. And that's really what hurt it. Of course, all the Democrats voted against it, which I thought was hilarious, because all the bill did was basically just Medicaid expansion as was originally prescribed by the Affordable Care Act. And we had some really, really conservative Democrats in the House Public Health, I guess, that wanted to vote against Obamacare. So kudos to those guys and ladies.
Wow, yeah, that is interesting. I remember that. That was so strange. You would think the Democrats, but of course, it just goes to show you. I was talking last hour about the uniparty. Sometimes you get the Democrats and Republicans locking arms on things that just don't make any sense. And I think it's because it comes down to the money, and you do have these giant corporate interests that want to continue receiving corporate welfare. Even if the people aren't going to the doctor, they just have an insurance policy. We're talking with State Representative Josh Miller. Josh, what about ethics? And we heard all this talk at the beginning of the session about ethics and how we needed to have ethics reform. Are you comfortable with the amount of ethics changes that happened, or do you think there should be more?
Paul, I will say this, that personally, I don't feel any less ethical now than I did before the session started. Or more. I don't know, man. It's the bottom line. We can have committees and reforms and legislature and all this stuff. You can't legislate just honest decent behavior. And that's basically what all that comes down to. I don't know. I'm not saying there doesn't need to be something else. I can't think of it right now, but the bottom line is, if people want to get involved in state government or federal government or whatever at some level and be crooks, they're going to find a way. And that's why it's just very important that we pay attention to who we're voting for and who we're electing and who we're hiring to be in different positions. Because if we hire the wrong people, they can make off with a few million dollars of taxpayer money. And they might go to prison for it.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah, I can appreciate your sentiment. I think that's a really good notion. That if you want to be a crook, if you're you're a politician and you want to do, you're going to find a way to do it. Because the system, we are giving people, when we vote for them, we're giving them power, and so they're going to be able to use that power to their advantage if they're so inclined to do so. So we do have to pay attention, and I honestly think, Josh, that is an argument for limited government. I mean, if you can't guarantee that there's not going to be, in this fallen world, somebody who's going to get up there and try to use their power to hurt other people who are just out there trying to make a living, then that means that what the government has the authority to do should be kept very limited in its size and its scope. Do you agree?
I do, 100% agree. That you hit the nail on the head right there.
So let's talk about social issues, because we've established that the tax policy, and look, I've talked to you before. We know the taxes were. I mean, it was good to cut taxes here, but then they raised taxes, and then they took a lot more than they gave us. And I don't even like that terminology, but social issues seemed there was some unity there, right?
Well, yeah, I think so. We're a very strong pro-life state. That's not going to change anytime soon. Anytime we can, run a bill that has anything to do with a pro-life stance, you're going to see quite a bit of unity there. Also, guns. That's another bill, another big deal. Very strong Second Amendment. Quite a bit of unity there. Maybe not as much unity as some would like. I think we should combine the two next session and look into the possibility of running a bill that says every baby born in the state of Arkansas gets a firearm and a scholarship for an enhanced carry permit
just
at birth.
Up. Yeah. At birth.
Awarded at birth. I may run that bill. I'm not sure.
I think that's fantastic.
And then we can take care of our social issues just right up front. Here's what we're going to do. If you, when you're born in the state of Arkansas, you get a gun and a scholarship for an enhanced carry class.
That's great. I love it.
So we could have the Patriots of Act 746 and Family Council working together, consulting on this bill, and I think it would be wonderful.
They're listening right now. I'm sure both. I know for a fact people from both of those organizations are listening right now. So that would be great. You need to draft that up. Send it to us. We'll write an article.
I'm going to work on that.
Okay.
I'm going to work on that. Hey, one thing that was really important to me during the session, and in all seriousness, was we finally got a bill passed that is going to mandate that DHS eliminate the developmentally disabled waiver waiting list. I've been working on that for a number of sessions, and we finally got that done. Had some great help with a few of my colleagues during the session on that. My Senate co-sponsor, Senator Hammer, was fantastic. Also had a lot of help from Senator Brian Davis over there, and that was the biggest win to me in the session, was getting that bill passed, because that's actually going to benefit and do some good for folks and make a difference in some lives. And I didn't want to completely badmouth the session without bringing that.
No, and you've been working on that. You've been working on that for a long time, haven't you, Josh?
I have. I think this was the third session that we've run that bill.
Wow.
And before, I'd never been able to get it out of committee, and this year it passed both chambers unanimously.
Wow, that's fantastic. And so congratulations on that. And I know that's a huge achievement for you, because we really were not, as a state, on the moral high ground without taking care of those who are the truly needy, while we're spending all this money to pay for able-to-work adults' health insurance, right?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, you can the folks on this waiting list, many of whom I talked to and heard from, they felt like the state was being quite hypocritical, because they've been on a waiting list for 10, 12, 13 years, and they call to find out, hey, is there any way we can get services or whatever, and they're constantly told, no, we don't have the money. Well, we spent $400 million this last year paying the insurance company's profit margin on our Medicaid expansion program.
Mm-hmm.
And these folks look at that and they feel kind of like the state's being hypocritical.
So real quick, I'm so glad you got that done. That's a good thing. So, we're taking care of those who truly can't take care of themselves now. So there isn't that hypocrisy. But I want to back up. You mentioned the insurance company's profit margins. Back when you were trying to take us for fee-for-service, that was a key component of your testimony. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because some people seem to dispute the profit margins of Medicaid expansion for Blue Cross Blue Shield and others.
Sure. I mean, it's in the Arkansas Works law. It was in the original private option law language. It requires that these insurance companies spend a minimum of 80% of their revenue on medical loss. That's actually 80% of their money taking care of sick people. And paying for, medical needs, whatever, health care. The other 20%, I mean, you can say some of that's administrative costs. I get that. But, in Arkansas, to take care of 270,000 people, do you need $400 million for administrative costs? I mean, and what exactly is administrative costs? That's your responsibilities include sending people a new card when it's up. I don't know. There's, $400 million is 20% of the $2 billion that we spent on the program. That's math. And so, maybe I can assure you, insurance companies are not spending more than they have to.
Yes.
They're not doing it. And then they want to come back every single year and ask for a rate increase and all this other kind of stuff. And then we don't have, another problem we have is we don't have the competition. Back in 2013 and 14, when the private option was introduced, we were going to have all this competition. It was going to keep prices low. I mean, we have two companies in the program now, Blue Cross and Centene, it's just the competition's not there. The prices are up. Like I said, $2 billion to take care of 270,000 people.
It's a gargantuan amount of money, and you know, we also need to remember. So if 20% of that's $400 million, and so 20% of that's profit or administrative costs or whatever, we also have to remember that you know, the Medicaid expansion population is not their only source of revenue either. It's not like they've got all this other money that's already funding administrative costs, presumably. So you were essentially saying, listen, we'll at least save $400 million, right? I mean, that was your argument. Go for fee for service, and we'll at least save $400 million.
It would be a minimum of $400 million. Now, that $400 million is, you know, shared between the state and the federal government. But, you know, this coming year, we're going to be paying, or in 2020, we're going to be paying, the state will be paying 10% of the cost of Medicaid expansion. All right, 10% of $400 million is $40 million. That's $40 million out of state revenue that is just being wasted on insurance companies' profit. That's not taking care of one person, not paying for one person's doctor visit or anything. $40 million just to say, hey, Blue Cross and Centene, we love y'all and sure do appreciate you. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a joke. And anyway, hopefully, I'll put the bill up for interim study. I heard this crap out of a lot of people is that, oh, well, it was, you know, Representative Miller, it was late in the session, and, you know, it's not something we might not want to take that up that late in the session because, you know, it could delay us getting out. Which, hey, nobody was more ready to get out of that session and be done with it than me. But, you know, sometimes, you know, I'm like, well, okay, we can put it off for 2 more years and waste another $800 million in the meantime. But, hey, you know, what's money to a hog?
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I appreciate your impression of the session, State Representative Josh Miller. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and just keep up the good work. Keep fighting the good fight, sir. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Paul. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Folks, we're going to take a break. This video will be available for your viewing or listening pleasure at conduitnews.com. YouTube channel, Conduit News. It'll be uploaded later in the day, and so subscribe and click the little bell to receive notifications. We'll be back in just a moment.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Made it a lot more interesting. We're talking with Senator Gary Stubblefield. This is his impression of the session. Gary, let's talk about let's talk about tax relief for the people. There was one good bill. I thought, the income tax cut, trying to make Arkansas more competitive over the next 2 years, bringing that 6.9% rate down to 5.9.
Right.
That's good. But then you had some revenue takers. You had the internet sales tax. You had gas tax increase. You have the extension of the half-cent sales tax. So my question to you is, what do you think? And I've got DFNA's numbers in front of me, but do you think at the end of the day, especially in the next couple fiscal years, the people are going to be paying more money to the government than they were, or less money?
I think until all these kick in, that in the short term we're going to be paying more. I don't think there's any question about that until these tax cuts actually kick in. Let me tell you about the internet sales.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Let's see here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program. Headlines: State Capitol projects put at $8.7 million. Wickline writing about Secretary of State John Thurston has a list of proposed projects at the state capitol. The East End Republican brought up the list when he made a successful pitch to the Arkansas Natural and Cultural Resources Council earlier this month. Well, here's the thing. The Marble Palace is an expensive thing to upkeep. You know what I mean? It is, after all, it's made of marble, or marble. Sorry, I've got Avengers Endgame on the mind. Hey, here is your meme of the day, ladies and gentlemen. In light of the Robert Mueller press conference, the 8-minute press conference that essentially thrown the country under the bus, violating prosecutorial standards and norms about what prosecutors are supposed to do, essentially advancing a presumption of guilt, meaning I couldn't prove he didn't do it. Not. Anyway, here is your meme, courtesy of here_for_observation on Instagram. This is the Johnny Depp movie I've never seen, by the way. Right? It's a meme from a Johnny Depp movie. That's Johnny Depp, right?
I'm like 90% sure it's Johnny Depp.
Yeah. So the kid looking up at his dad, who happens to be Johnny Depp, Mueller found no collusion, Dad. And Johnny Depp looks down at his son and he says, "We're Democrats. We'll find another lie." And then he hugs his son and he says, "And I've told you, please call me Mom." Telephone number, call or text is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Please call me Mom. We're Democrats. We'll find another lie. And I've told you before. Please call me Mom. I mean, I'm a biological male, and technically I'm a father, but I identify as a mom. So I need you to call me Mom. Anyway, once again, the right is the political right in this country are full of meme lords, and those meme lords are effectively, again, the reason we're doing this is because I want to highlight that the right is effectively in many cases lighthearted and pro comedy, and we're pro comedy right now because we're pro First Amendment. And the left is getting less and less funny because they don't believe in free speech. They believe in policing speech, which means if you can't say anything, then comedy and entertainment in general. Why do you think most of those Academy Award nominated films for Best Picture, the average American doesn't watch? And it's been a fast decline. I mean, do you remember when Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, was nominated for Best Picture in 2000 or 2003 or whenever it was out? I mean, and then, of course, Return of the King won Best Picture. Those were movies that people actually went and saw. Not all of this obsession with trying to use, film as an art to make these statements. people want to go and they want to be entertained. They don't want to be told and lectured what's wrong with society, and that's all the Academy, and that's all movies are now.